We are back with another episode of Bosco Talks, BYU and more. And this week we're going to go over a few things. First, we're going to talk about cover three. We've talked a little bit about cover two in a previous episode. A little bit different. I have a whiteboard, so if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to follow along as we kind of show cover three. We're going to talk about the coaching staff at BYU when you played and kind of your first time meeting LaVell and different things like that, and then we'll do some Q&A. So let's go over cover three. We obviously went over cover two, which both safeties kind of drop back and they're kind of playing zone. The corners are often playing man. Now in cover three, a lot of the defense is actually playing zone. So I'll kind of draw it on this whiteboard. Typically we have four defenders down here. We got the DNs. We've got a nose tackle and a defensive tackle. You've got your corners, cornerbacks right there. This might be, I don't know if it's backwards when we're, but then typically you got kind of three safeties, a strong safety, we'll say, and a free safety. So typically the cornerback will drop back, cover this. The free safety will take the middle of the field, and this corner will drop back. Now, I assume with some of these, like this is the strong safety. Depending on who your strong safety is, they could maybe drop back into that position. The corner could stay. But the strong safety will usually be there. Linebacker, this middle, this linebacker, and then a third linebacker will be on this outside. So kind of depending on who your playmakers are, looking back to the BYU team last year, this linebacker probably is Glasker, played receiver in high school, really good athlete, along with the other two linebackers, but he's a decent cover guy. So you might have him in the flat. What did you look for, Dad, or what were some key tells for cover three?
Well, that's not a bad drawing, but usually it's just not that simple. But cover three, like Colorado State played a lot of cover three. And it's just a deep zone, and they don't want to give up big plays. Not that you can't give up big plays, but they don't want to give up big plays in that.
Yeah.
So the two corners, free safety, have a third of the field. Okay? And then the strong safety has curled the flat, the backers drop, the weak side linebacker has curl to flat as well. And they typically rush only four guys. So it's a pretty good drawing. Colorado State played a lot of strong zone. Back in the day, Air Force played a lot of strong zone. And what you liked about it is, as a quarterback, you may not get a lot of big plays unless you're scrambling around and throwing downfield, but you're going to be able to complete a lot of balls because you
Yeah.
feel like you have five linemen. They should be able to handle four blockers. But sometimes you have some amazing DNs that can make some big plays. And so you still got to be like, you can't be nonchalant in this kind of coverage. You still got to be able to read coverages and stuff like that. So a lot of times we would do plays where if we had like a curl and then a guy running in the flat, we would read that outside linebacker and we would go, if he dropped straight back, then we would probably throw the ball out to the flat. Yeah. If he tried to cover both as a quarterback with experience, you would kind of use your eyes to get that linebacker to move one way or the other. Because they're kind of taught, watch the quarterback, watch his eyes, because he's going to throw it to where he's looking. So as I got better at doing that and more experience, I would use my eyes and get him leaning or going to a certain position, then throw back to the other curl. So the very, very basic defense, we played back in the 80s with Dick Felt was our coordinator. We played a ton of zone. Never get up big plays. And what you want to do is like, if there's one holding play or a turnover of some sort, you did your job. And so teams could move the ball, but then it got tougher inside the 20-yard line because there's not as much room closer to the end zone. And you're hoping that teams will make mistakes if they have like an 11, 12, 13 play drive.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the philosophy behind always playing zone. But now teams blitz a lot more. They change up coverages a lot more. They try to disguise things. When we were playing Pitt, the game-winning touchdown, they were in strong zone. But the free safety left the middle of the field to try to cheat up, to try to make a play on the tight end, like double cover our tight end. And so now you have no one in the middle of the field. So now when we run the post, the quarterback has to cover that guy the whole way, and then you have a lot more room to throw the ball, and that's when we scored that last touchdown.
It felt like you guys threw to the tight end a lot in the 80s. And part of it could be people playing this where, there's kind of pockets all through this middle of the field. And so your tight end might go out and just kind of find a spot. Because you're given enough time, they can kind of see where the defense is. And to your point, like the Pitt game, the free safety comes down because you've thrown to the tight end 10, 12 times in that game. He thinks, though, that's your hot route, and the middle of the field opens up, which is hard part with cover three. I also think that you have to have a lot of really good athletes on the defense. Your linebackers have to be able to potentially cover running backs, receivers, cover a wide space on the field, and just make really good tackles.
Yeah, I mean, you got to confuse everything and to make things quicken up for the quarterback and everybody is a pass rush. So if you have a pass rush of 4 guys that can put heat on the quarterback, you are going to be able to, you have 7 defenders now to try to cover everybody. And so that's a huge benefactor for the defense. With that being said, with the tight end and our running backs, I mean, Dave Mills caught 65 balls that year.
Yeah.
I think our fullback caught in the 50s, our halfback caught in the 30s or 40s. And so that was a big part of our offense because the way teams were playing. Now, I don't know if that would be the same thing, playing the offense that we're doing, and the ball may have to go to the receivers more. But back then, tight ends were a huge benefactor. Gordon Hudson he may have been, I know he's a 2-time first-team All-American. He may have been a 3-time, I don't know, but I know he was a consensus All-American, and he was just impossible to cover. He was that good.
Yeah. Do you feel like that, like you said, I feel like cover 3 is potentially during the 2-minute drill, which we talked about last week, it could be a popular defense because it doesn't give up the big plays as much. But to your point, Air Force or Colorado State were kind of mainly in those zones. A lot of that is scouting the teams beforehand, but were there any teams you played that switched it up, or was Colorado State like, hey, we play cover 3 80% of the game?
Like when we played New Mexico is always kind of different. New Mexico, a few times they would rush 1 guy and they would drop 10 players. And so you sat back in the pocket and you're moving around. You have 4, 5 linemen blocking 1 guy. So you had all the time in the world, but it was hard to find a guy open.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they would bring the house. They would bring like 8 guys. And so you just had to be prepared for all that stuff. I remember Jim McMahon, when they played New Mexico, I think it was the junior year, I can't remember a junior, senior year, but that was the only loss they had all year. And they sacked him a ton, they hit him a ton, and we weren't prepared for those blitzes that they did.
Yeah.
And so from then on, I don't think BYU ever got handled by people blitzing. We were able to get rid of the ball a lot quicker. But when you're not prepared for something, most defenses are going to be pretty dominant.
Yeah. Well, talking about coaches, obviously LaVell being your head coach, he's a legendary head coach throughout college football. what was your first experience in meeting LaVell? Did he come out on any recruiting trips, or was the first time you met him when you went to BYU to do a visit,
Um,
if you remember?
I don't remember the timing of it all. I do remember though when he did come to our house, he was with Ted Tollner, who was the quarterback coach at the time. Then he became USC's head coach. Um, I remember looking out the window, and he and Coach Tollner stepped out of the car, and it was quite exciting to see LaVell Edwards, and he was a legend as it was. I mean,
Yeah.
BYU was throwing for a ton of yards, breaking all these records, and it was a place you kind of wanted to go as a quarterback, at least for me. So to see LaVell, come to our house and, give us the recruiting pitch and all that
Yeah.
was fun. I know my mom and dad, who have since passed away, they loved it. They loved it all. It was exciting for them to have a son being recruited by a major college, and they probably were more excited that I could get a scholarship and they didn't have to pay for any school either. That may have been number one. I don't know. But it was fun though. I mean,
Yeah.
it was awesome meeting him, and whatever you may see him on the sidelines or maybe see him in the supermarket, it's just that's who he is. He never changed. He never got too high, he never got too low. He was just a good, solid coach and an amazing person.
Yeah.
And that's one of the great experiences that I had was to be able to play under LaVell, coach with LaVell, golf with LaVell, and be just a super good friend with their family and him. And we went on a lot of trips together, and it was amazing for me.
What was his coaching style compared to maybe a high school coach or anything? Because you see pictures of LaVell, and like you said, he never got high and he never got low. He was very even keeled, and like he was very good at putting the right coaches in place that did exactly what they needed to do. The offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, defense. He seemed to always hire the perfect guy. So talk a little bit about that, and then also his coaching style compared to maybe some other coaches that you had.
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is he surrounded himself with greatness. He probably has some of the best coaches um, on a staff that I've ever seen. And there's been a lot of great coaches around, but a lot of these coaches became head coaches. A lot of them became coordinators, and it was fascinating that he let these coaches coach. There's a lot of things as being the head football coach at BYU that you have to also work on other than just coaching.
Yeah.
And Kalani Sataki could probably testify to that. And Kalani has done the same thing at BYU. He has surrounded himself with some amazing coaches.
Yeah.
And LaVell let his coaches coach. And he didn't interfere. He wasn't always in the offensive staff meeting room or the defensive staff meeting room and saying, oh, maybe you should do it this way or that way. He trusted them and knew that they would get the team prepared and ready to play on offense, defense, special teams, or whatever it takes. And I remember one time we were at practice. My dad came to practice, but he was a kind of a dad that he wasn't a helicopter dad. I'll say that. He was outside the fence, even between two bushes, just watching practice. He's there in Utah, so he'd want to come see his dad practice or his son practice.
Yeah.
And my dad's name was Lou Bosco, and LaVell thought he saw him over there. And I think I ran a play, and then I was coming back to the huddle. He goes, hey, Robbie, is that Louie over there? I go, yeah, there's my dad. Then he looked to a trainer. He said, go get that guy right there and tell him to come back here into practice. And LaVell spent the next hour and a half talking with him. And that was just the kind of person that he was. And that was important to LaVell to do that because he knew it was important to probably me, and he was important to the parent.
Yeah.
And I don't think you really see a whole lot of that anymore in
No.
coaching. LaVell was much more than a football coach. He was a second father to all of us. Um, I've never really heard any negative stories or negative things about LaVell, and I don't know if he ever will. So I was just the decision to come to BYU, to be a part of the BYU family, to be a part of LaVell's life was amazing, and I'm grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, you see a lot of. I mean, Kalani played under LaVell, correct? So
Yeah.
you see a lot of LaVell and Kalani, which is like you said, it's just rare in college football and football in general to have a coach that cares probably more about outside of football of his players than potentially inside. Not, obviously they're there to win. LaVell was a winner. Kalani wants to win. He's a winner. So they're driven people that want to accomplish great things, but they care so much about each individual, and it shows. Like you said, they allow these coaches to coach, prepare, so that they can mentor, they can during the games they can be there, not too high, not too low, to talk to the players, get them back on track if something goes wrong, and it's really cool to see. Um, a big part of LaVell too is Patty, and obviously for us, I remember running around and Patty always taking care of us when you were coaching with LaVell. But talk a little bit about Patty too, and the influence that she had on maybe the players, girlfriends, wives, on the players themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even mention LaVell without mentioning Patty. She was amazing. We've been on trips together. Um, I remember going to bowl games, and she would always end up playing cards with the kids and the families. She would, back then in the 80s, you just had newspapers. You didn't have the
Yeah.
internet. You didn't have any of this stuff. But any newspaper article with my name in it, she clipped each one out, sent a stack every week to my mom and dad so they could read all the things that were going on and things that they probably didn't get out there in California.
Yeah.
And so that was huge. She always had a dinner with the wives, the players' wives, because it's hard. I mean, it's hard as a coach when you're married. It's hard as a player, typically, for sure, when you're married. I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't really happen anywhere else but BYU, to have such a big number. But sometimes they always kind of sometimes they felt left out, felt like they weren't really involved and stuff like that. And Patty always made sure that the wives were involved. And without a great wife on your side, it's hard to be a coach.
Yeah.
It's hard to be a player because you're always gone. You're always doing stuff. You're practice early, you have school, and then you have practice and meetings and everything. And the same with the coaches. They're always at
Yeah.
meetings early and they don't get home till late. And so, in fact, I think she was the one that started. We used to have these coaches conventions where all the coaches would go to a particular place and have meetings and things like that. And I think she's the one that started the convention for the wives. And so the wives would come and they would have their own meetings and talk about the things that I don't know. I've never been to one, so I don't know what they talk about, but they talk about something. And so, yeah, she was amazing. She was amazing, and they're like peanut butter and jelly. They
Yeah.
just go together, and they made it all happen.
It's awesome. Yeah, the Edwards are great. They're awesome people. Going back to kind of some of the QB coaches, talk about the QB coaches that you had at BYU and walk us through kind of what you would go through in watching film or going into the QB room, kind of some of those main components and kind of what as a player. We'll get into other episodes when you were coaching too, but talk to this one as a player, the coaches you had, and kind of that process.
Yeah, so when I came in as a freshman, Ted Tollner was the quarterback coach. And then my next 4 years, Mike Holmgren was the quarterback coach. And both were amazing. Both have gone on to amazing things. Ted Tollner, I know, is at SC. I can't even think of the other places he was at as a head coach. Mike Holmgren, he started off in a small school in San Francisco, came to BYU, coached 4 years. So I was fortunate to have him for a couple years. I think, I'm not sure about his pedigree chart, but I know he was coaching at the 49ers,
Yeah.
being head coach at the Packers, won a
Yep.
Super Bowl
Packers.
at Green Bay and stuff like that. And both were awesome. I learned a ton. And I also learned a ton from Norm Chow. Norm Chow during that time he called every single play. He was basically the coordinator of the offense. He didn't have that title, but he was the offensive coordinator. And I probably learned more from him than anybody because of his style of coaching, his style of calling plays. I hardly ever had to change plays. Every once in a while, I changed some plays, and we used what we call the side adjustments, like we talked about. But he had such a great knack of calling the right play at the right time. And we were taught so well in our meetings that we knew what to do with the ball. So the big difference of back then and back and now is we met the quarterbacks, the receivers, the tight ends, and the running backs all met together.
Oh, wow.
And what I liked about that is, as coaches, and I'm talking a little bit about when I was a coach, but as coaches, we knew we could help everybody.
Yeah.
I could help a receiver. I could help a running back. Lance Reynolds could talk to the tight ends. Norm talked to everybody. And we were all on the same page. So there's no reason for excuses, no reason that we didn't know what the other person was saying. And now they have more individual meetings.
Yeah.
So you really have to be on top of things and make sure whatever is relayed by the coordinator gets to the players in that right thinking of what to do. And so it was awesome. And then I had the opportunity to coach with Norm forever. 14, well, I guess it was 12 years, I think it was.
Yeah.
And Lance Reynolds, Roger French, Chris Pella. Our offensive staff was a lot of fun. And we won a lot of football games. So we won a lot of games as a player, and I won a lot of games as a coach. And so that's a good time to do those things.
When did you have any one-on-one time though with the coaches talking more about kind of the reads, or again was that kind of all together, maybe Norm talking about, hey, this is kind of obviously each play has its progressions, but did you talk about that as a whole group, or did you also have some one-on-one time, maybe that was more in practice where you focused in on some of the more detailed aspects of being a quarterback?
Yeah, we had one-on-one time for sure. Before we had our meetings together, I would always go meet with Coach Holmgren, and we would talk about the game. We would talk about the good things that we did, and we would talk about the things that we didn't do so well.
Yeah.
And Coach Holmgren had a great sense of humor, so we actually had a lot of fun working together. I remember in '85, we were playing Air Force at home, and I wasn't playing my best game. I think I threw a couple interceptions in the first half, maybe 3, but 2 for sure, and returned for touchdowns, one of them. And so I got back to the bench, and I'm sitting on the bench, and I'm just dejected and everything. So he comes over, and he holds up. He goes, "How many fingers am I holding up?" I go, "Real funny." And he says, "Just keep going. You're going to be fine." So he didn't rip into me. I'm sure they were as frustrated as coaches because I've been on the headsets.
Yeah.
And I know what's done and said and everything like that, but nobody was more frustrated than I was. And they were just super good. That's no excuse, but they were like ranked 3rd in the country at the time.
Yeah.
And that was probably the best Air Force team I've ever seen, especially on defense. They were loaded and they were good. But I still didn't play great. And but they had the confidence in me. I mean, look at we just won the national championship, and we were still pretty good. And we came back and won the game, so all's well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, a little bit about the coaches. If you guys have any questions about any other coaches that my dad had or anything, send those in. Again, we'll do a few fan Q&As. First one here. What was your go-to pregame meal? Did you guys get fed by the school, and did you have a go-to meal?
Yeah, so we ate in the Cannon Center, which was at the dorms. And so our pregame meal was they would have steak, they had eggs, they had whatever you think you wanted,
Yeah.
pancakes and all that stuff. I'd get my food, sit down, take one bite, and then I was done. My stomach was just all nervous and my anxiety was out the wall, and I never ate. I never ate. We usually played at 12 o'clock, so it was just like when the game was over, I was like starving to death.
Yeah.
But I just, yeah, for before the games, I couldn't eat anything. So I really had no pregame meal other than showing
Not
up,
easy.
get my name checked off that I was there, and avoiding some reporters as I would leave, as they had to get the last second word of what I wanted to think about the game or whatever.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then I'd go get taped and just get ready to go play.
Nice. All right, and last one. Do you remember any nicknames that you had at BYU, maybe given to by a few of the guys or all the guys? Were there any nicknames besides Bosco?
Um, yeah, I didn't really have any nicknames. I mean, I know they did some things like the boss is back, where I had a center picture of the magazine, and I was in my uniform sitting at some CEO's desk. I don't even know what it was, but yeah, they nobody was too creative. There was no nicknames. I was probably called a lot of different things outside than I was by our teammates.
We'll have to pull out some of those magazines because they were awesome back in the '80s. What they had. um, and your high school, wasn't it? Was it the Roseville Rifle? Was that right?
They actually, I think it was probably the news
The
people,
news.
the sports people, and they came up with Roseville Rifle, and people still said different things outside. I
Yeah,
go, no, I think they said Roseville Rifle, two R's, but that's about the only thing I've ever heard, at least.
that's awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to this episode. Do not forget to leave a review. Go follow us on all the social media channels, and we'll see you next time.